But, we got into something just right before the break that was interesting, and that's with respect to the Dayton, Ohio shooter, that when he was in high school, he had been discovered as being, a potentially violent person, I would say. I mean, he made up a hit list of his classmates. Apparently, at some point, he went into the school bathroom. I assume they probably have more than one, but one of the school bathrooms and wrote on the wall his hit list. And that's what actually caused the school to kind of be locked down. It's my understanding that the and I don't know if it was the principal or the assistant principal, but that he was asked about this, and I read in one of the interviews somewhere on one of the Ohio papers, and he said basically, look, I don't really want to comment on it, but I wouldn't deny that statement. So, he was essentially confirming the fact that, there was this incident in high school with this kid where he wrote a hit list on the wall. Now, apparently he received some counseling after that, which you would think, would be mandatory, that you'd have to get some kind of counseling. And there'd be maybe some effort to evaluate you as to, okay, was this kid serious? Was this kind of a cry for help? Was he just acting out? Is he being bullied? To me, you would think that the administration would want some sort of analysis of what's really going on with this kid. I mean, he's a junior, right? So he's going to be there for a full another year at least. So, and apparently they did something. They had a counselor come in and meet with him, and his classmates said that after that he seemed very normal and kind of got back to normal. Obviously, he was probably covering,
Well, you bring that point up too. I mean, it's like if you try to identify someone as having a mental illness, and then if they're mentally ill and also sociopathic, then they're able to act like everything is fine.
Sure, right. They can pretend. Like all the psychopaths that the Ted Bundys of the world who can walk around and pull it off, pretend to be normal people when in reality they're mass murderers and terrible people. So, and you get, to me, I think you got to look at the satanic aspect of it, at least the guy in Dayton, Ohio. I mean, these people have, something that President Trump said during his remarks, caught my ear, and that is about the sanctity and the dignity of human life. I don't know that he said it exactly like that, but he said things like that before, particularly when he's talked about abortion, that every human being is created in the holy image of God and things like that. And the move away from recognizing that as a society, as a group, we do not acknowledge God, we don't reference God, we don't talk about human beings as being created in God's image. The move away from that has caused a decline in the value of human life and the value that we all feel towards other humans. We should respect human life as a gift from God. It's essentially above our pay grade, not to be taken away by us. It's for God to decide who lives and who dies. But people have gotten rid of God and moved God out of public life and out of their lives individually. And, the result is that you could feel comfortable that it would be anywhere within the realm of appropriate to go and kill other people. I mean, how could you be comfortable with that? I mean, seriously, how could you just feel okay about that?
Morals are all out of whack.
Morals are out of whack.
They're just gone.
They're totally gone. And obviously people don't feel the idea of thou shalt not kill. They think, well, why not? This person is in my way, or they believe something that I don't believe.
Life value is not there like it used to be. I mean, it's so easy to just, I killed somebody.
Well, and think about the idea of the violence reaction that we've got to all these political issues. And that comes with some of the Antifa groups.
Right.
I mean, they have seriously injured people. I don't know if they've killed anybody, but they've seriously injured people, certainly attacked them in different situations and things, physically attacked them. I'm thinking of a video that I saw where a guy whacks a guy on the head and you can hear his head crack like a coconut, hits him with a baton. I mean, that was about a year ago from one of these Antifa, demonstrations.
And we've heard this argument before, and I think sometimes it is a little bit silly to say, oh my gosh, there's so much violence in video games or in TV and on movies. Because you can have somebody watch a very violent show and they're not going to react to it in any way whatsoever, except, okay, they know it, take it for entertainment value. But I do think we are in an increasingly media-driven, violent world, because I notice now as a parent, I'm constantly, if it's commercials, there's all kinds of stuff. I'm turning the television off because it's too violent.
Yeah. Well, and it's just a constant stream of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about this? When violent games started, when they first started out there, and parents were in the uproar when they saw the shooting and the blood and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's now they've accepted that.
Sure, they have. Yeah,
They've
that's
allowed that to
considered.
continue.
Right. I mean, I saw a guy being, just to kind of put a point on this, I saw a guy being interviewed, and I think it was in El Paso. He was one of the alleged bystanders. He seemed pretty polished to me. But anyway, he had on a Deadpool shirt. And if you know what Deadpool is, Deadpool's a comic book character. Now, I have to confess, I have not seen the Deadpool movies, but I get the idea of it. He can't be killed no matter what happens to him. And he kills a lot of other people, and they're just incredibly violent movies with a lot of people.
And he's very GQ.
And he's very GQ, and it's almost a comedy. It's like a violent comedy. He make a joke out of everything. And our brains
American Psycho was like that too with Christian Bale. Remember that movie?
Great example. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I do. Right? It glorified the American Psycho. It glorified this idea of living the secret life. And, of course, in that particular movie, I'm not even really sure if that stuff was happening or if he was just imagining it and writing it in his journal or, that was a real psychological play on that. But you're exactly right. People develop a comfort level with this. And the only way you could have that is by not believing that there was a God who's going to hold you accountable at the end of the world. And I know a lot of people think that's silly, maybe an old-fashioned idea. But, it also had some value, whether you believe it or not, in keeping people oriented towards a certain morality, towards a certain idea that, you are responsible to an authority figure, not just a human authority figure, but a cosmic authority figure for what you do. And so you should live accordingly because you're going to be rewarded or you're going to be punished based on, the things that you do in this life. And I think that we've lost something with that, with the divorce of religion from our public life, the inability to talk about religion, the disrespect that's afforded to God in our public life. I think the dividends that pays are what we're experiencing right now. I don't think this comes from the gun culture because you know what? We've had a gun culture in this country for many years. We've had tens and even hundreds of millions of firearms in the country for many years. A very well-armed populace for almost the entirety of this nation. And these mass shootings are a newer phenomenon, these particularly the ones done by young people. I mean, these tend to be younger people, at least the ones that are making the news here. Again, we're not hearing about the sort of mass shootings in Chicago, but those are probably done, one would guess, by fairly young people as well. But they're done by young people, who have no connection to God, to religion, who've played these violent video games. Your brain is very plastic, and the images that you see, and the audio, the words that you hear, can essentially reprogram your brain over time. And so if you sit there and play Grand Theft Auto all day, every day for, 3-4 weeks, you are reprogramming your brain to be a little. You're becoming the guy that you see on the video screen. That's becoming you as you continue to just plug into this world and embrace that. And then you bring it out and you bring it into the real world. And these folks behave very much like people behave in the Grand Theft Auto video games. In fact, I think the Dayton guy, there was even some talk about that he had played a bunch of video games when he was younger, and he had even given himself the name Hostage Killer, because for him, what he said was one of the most fun things and one of the most hilarious things he could do in a video game would be in a video game where you were supposed to go and save a bunch of hostages.
I didn't read this. He said
you would the best thing to do then is just round them all up and then look them right in the eye as you execute them in the video game. Now, obviously, you aren't going to get any video game points for that, but I guess what I'm saying is these video games almost encourage you, particularly the ones that are kind of this open universe idea of you can do anything you want to do within the context of this video game. It almost encourages you to try it out. Hey, you want to just go kill somebody? You want to know what that might feel like? Just go do it. Why not? And then very little happens to you in the game because of that.
Well, this entire country can talk all they want about this, but we are nowhere close to this ever being over for a long time ahead of us.
Yeah.
That's sad. Well, I feel like, too, something we haven't talked about because we've kind of come at this from all different angles. And by the way, we're just making educated guesses based on little things that we've read covering these, biographies about these two heinous people.
Mm-hmm.
You've got whatever they're exposed to from a media standpoint. You've got, obviously, the mental illness, the psychosis, the truly horrific, evil person. But another thing that isn't talked about that may apply, may not apply, is that loneliness factor. So you have this, I don't want to say generation, but because it's obviously there are a lot of wonderful people, but you have this sort of type of person who's doing these things, and they usually are an isolated person, whether it is or isn't because of video games.
Yeah, I saw some kind of a study that said 20% of millennials don't have any friends.
I saw that same study, yes.
And that disconnectedness from other humanity can lead you to losing your human empathy.
I bet.
And then, does it seem reasonable, particularly if you're lonely and you're angry, does it seem reasonable? Okay, fine. Well, if I can't have a good life, then nobody can. I'm just going to shoot the place up. Is that I don't know. Is that the mentality? I think that's something we have to be worried about. And as a big picture thing, our culture needs to embrace the sanctity of life, which we have not done for many, many decades now. So to me, that's what it all comes back to as a starting point, is not embracing the sanctity of human life. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.